Last week we went full glam so you could see every step that I would do in order, but not everybody wears that much makeup all of the time, so let's do the same thing for what I would consider a full face that's not necessarily full glam.
Hey, I'm maybe Burke and you're watching Makeup for Lost Time. This is my series for trans women and other people who feel like they missed a few classes when it came to learning about makeup.
I'm starting the same way with an eye base. This is probably going to be more of what people consider a soft glam, and even still, I feel like people are going to think that this is more steps than they need, and that's because every step is optional. Makeup isn't mandatory. There's a lot of different ways you can do your makeup. There are no rules. I'm not here teaching you what you have to do. I'm here teaching you what I do. I'm using the Blend Bunny Alice Atlantis collab. I'm obsessed with this palette recently. You've seen it before if you've seen my videos. And I'm inspired by this look I saw Rose do. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. Rose Sired? I'm sorry. I've been loving her content recently. I've loved her content for a while, but I always look at her eye looks, and I know we have very different eye shapes, but I always want to try my versions of them, so I figured now was a good time to try. And so I figured now was a good time to try. Now that looks like a cut crease moment, but I'm actually going to just use a liner because I'm pretty sure I can get the effect that I want with just this flat angled brush and some eyeshadow. And I'm gonna relax my hoods so I can really see where I'm going with this and actually just use it right along that line. So we have the line when my eye is relaxed, and we have a fun shape when it's not. We'll clean up the lid. But let me match this on the other side real quick. Cute. And then, okay, so I want it sharp. So I'm gonna come in with a little bit of that base and just underline where I put that line for the shadow so that it really helps give that stark color contrast. And we have a good shape. Now she has this like peachy negative space, so I'm gonna come in and just dab this right over the base that we just laid. And I'm actually gonna mix it with this like pinky color, which is like a little more like deep and mauvey, but it's the vibe I want. And then I'm actually gonna come back in with the colors that I used in the crease, and I'm just gonna run these on the outer corner of the lash line because the magic she has is like the negative space of that peachy color, but then like the color of the line across the crease is also like coming up off the lashes. So slowly building that color up to the deepest. And then I'm going to come back in with that flat angled brush with the deepest color and just kind of flick this out from the lash line to get something of like a blended wing. I'm not worrying too much about connecting these two lines. Hers don't connect, and I think the optical illusion is our friend. And where the top line is like a pretty stark line, we underlined it with the base to give it a sharp edge. What we have around the lash line for contrast is actually kind of smooth and blended. This is fun. I just took some gray to smoke that out across the top a little more. That's better. I don't know, the line was not looking its best. I think because it needs to have more going on above it. But we still have the integrity of the sharp edge underneath it. Always going back and forth between brushes we've used to help get the smoothest blend. Especially when playing with like warmer and cooler tones, you want to make sure they are seamlessly blended together. And the real magic that she has there is the like smoky blend up from the lash line. So I'm again gonna dip into that gray and use that to smoke out the brown liner that I have laid down. And obviously Rose and I have very different eye shapes, so what she's capable of I'm not necessarily going to be able to achieve on my eye. And also she's like a far more skilled makeup artist than I am. But I really like this vibe. Just matching that blend underneath the eye. And of course I could have gone higher with the line above my crease because I'm not gonna quite get the same vibe as her. But I did this to match my eye shape, and I actually really like how it's subtle until I raise my eyes and you see the negative space. I'm just gonna finish this off with some shadow liner. You've seen me do this on a flat brush. With this, I'm just gonna stamp and wiggle right along the lash line. And there we go. It actually like looks kind of simple as an eyeshadow, but I think it's fun. Gonna wipe off any fallout. And we'll move on with complexion. I'm gonna use my neutralizer. You don't need to do a color correcting step, but I always like to. So I can just stamp this right over where I see darkness. And I actually have an electrolysis appointment tomorrow, so I've been growing these little chin hairs out, so I'm gonna Do a little bit down here. Then when it comes to foundation, I've got a couple of foundations that are just too yellow on me. You can see it just does not match my skin. So while we're trying an eye look from Rose, I figured we'd also try out her color theory technique with a purple blush. Now, I've actually done this before. I've been familiar with the color theory. And she uses a lighter color of this Rare Beauty blush, but I use a deeper shade. It's just a matter of finding the thing that works better for you. Oh, but you can see that actually made it a little too dark. But I do have a white corrector in here, so if I were to pick some of that up as well, we can lighten it. And then this shade becomes far more my skin tone than it was before. Now, is it ideal to need 2 correctors with this foundation? No. But when these are things that I already have lying around, why not use them? She always gets the ratio right, like immediately. But I'm not that girl, so we're gonna have to work this in a little bit. And we make the dream work. There we go. And then in the name of color correcting, I'm actually just gonna go in with a different color corrector. And we're using this right under the eye as a brightening concealer. I know it's like quite stark, but it'll blend out, don't worry. Using this to highlight down the center of the face. Especially because that foundation ran like a little darker than me. We want some lightness to help counterbalance that. I'm gonna come in with like a purpley blush, but not necessarily the one we use to color correct. This one is from Armani, and we're just gonna tap that right, like, northeast of the apples of our cheek. Hopefully looking at what I'm doing helps that make sense. And we can blend it out from there. Tip of the nose, and let's hit some color on the forehead. This is probably the step that is like most different from full glam. I don't use bronzer or contour or anything like that usually for my full face. But I am gonna come back in with the foundation brush. I'm not dipping it in anything new and just using it to blend this out. See, I told you once we did that it wouldn't be too stark. It's a personal preference to only use blush. You can do bronzer or contour or both if you want to. I think you know at this point my philosophy is always going to be to choose your own adventure. And also, a lot of how I learned what I like is by experimenting and seeing how different things looked on me. We lost some of the color on the top of the cheek, so I'm just gonna come back in with the blush. And honestly, we could stop here. Oh, I didn't do mascara. Well, we can stop there. I could just throw on some setting spray and call this a day. We don't necessarily need powders and all of that. You know I have pretty freaking dry skin, so there are definitely days that I just do the creams and liquids. And honestly, this base is already looking kind of dry, so we're definitely going to go in with a healthy layer of our setting spray. Oh, I just love that mascara. So yeah, let's coat the face in a nice hydrating layer of setting spray. But I am going to take a powder. I'm only going to take a loose setting powder. You can do a pressed, like 6 of 1/2 dozen for me. I just find giving my smile lines in the center of the face a little powder, and I mean a little powder, it just helps to have everything set down and ready to go. I lied. I don't know why I lied, because I haven't done brows or lips. I'm gonna grab my brow gel, which is also like an optional step. When I'm in the mood, I'll do it. But with these brows, I don't need to like fill them in order to like feel like I have a full face on. And then with constant dry skin comes dry lips. So this is a bag gloss. I'll always have a lip gloss in the bag. I was put onto these Cocokind ones, and I really love the texture. And the color, honestly. Full glam, we did a liner, a lipstick, and a gloss. But honestly, most days I'm just using a bag gloss. Okay, now I think that's the full face. One more layer of setting spray, because we did the powder. You can also finish it off with a fixing spray there. Have we talked about the difference of that? Oh, well, we might in the future. And there you have a full face. That is soft glam, but not necessarily full glam. Let me know which one of the two you prefer and stick around as we make up for lost time.